Good morning. It's Trish. I'm here with Mentoring Moms. I've got Dorinda with me. Hey, Dorinda, how are
Hey,
you?
good morning. I'm very good, thank you.
Introduce yourself. Dorinda's from.
I'm from Simple Nourishing Home, and I just live in the Pacific Northwest with, well, 6 kids still left at home, but we have 8 total, and my husband on 21 acres.
And she's a veteran homeschooler. She's been homeschooling for what, 20 years now?
Yep.
Wow, long time. And then we have
Yes.
Heidi. Hey, Heidi. Heidi's on the opposite coast.
Yeah.
I am. We're over here up in New York, getting ready to freeze it out for the winter. We're already
Yeah.
losing our summer, so I actually like this time of year because I can open the windows. But
Yeah.
so we're on the opposite coast over here, and I blog at startstodate.com, and I have 3 kids: high school, middle school, and elementary school. So I got the gamut. And is that it? That's it. I'm not very entertaining. See.
Yes, she is. Don't let her fool you.
That's
And
me in a
I'm
nutshell.
Trish. I'm Trish. I am with Hip Homeschool Moms and also with my own blog, which is Live and Learn, which is poor thing is, it is completely not getting any attention whatsoever these days. So if you go to Live and Learn and there's nothing new there, you'll know why. So I know, pretty sad. I homeschool 3 boys. I have 3 little boys, and we are also high school, middle school, and elementary. So, and Lisa's normally here, and will probably pop in. She's having some technical difficulties this morning, so when she pops in, we'll introduce her then. So, Dorinda, you wrote a great article this month for Hip Homeschool Moms. So I don't necessarily need you to read it, but tell us about it because it was a great article.
Well, now you're making me have to remember what it is I wrote. Jog my memory a little here.
Would you like me to read it for you, Dorinda? You wrote a post. I have it up. Ready? I won't read it all. What is your homeschool message? So
Right.
you and questioning what is your homeschool message, not what you should say, but not your homeschool mission statement. What is the unspoken message we send to our children by our response to life's curveballs? I think that covers
Yeah,
the
I
gist,
kind
right?
of, it's one of those ones you write to yourself on a regular basis because it's a constant ongoing battle. But having been doing this for 20 years, you get a little bit of perspective, some hindsight. We've graduated 3, 2 are married, one's in college, um, and you just start to get a little more perspective on, what was the overall feeling in our home, as the kids have been growing up and as we've been homeschooling, and it just makes you realize that in our homeschooling, the way that we respond to just normal life is probably the biggest message that we send our kids, bigger than the curriculum and everything else, is how do you handle life? How do you handle the things that come along and what's really important and your priorities and that kind of thing. And so that's the most important message that we convey to our kids, above math and language and all that, and that's all great. But in the midst of all of that, just kind of what are we saying is important and isn't important in life. And so just to remember that as we're homeschooling, we kind of just reflect sort of a spirit in our home of what life is all about, and just to bear that in mind and not make the curriculum and the goals and the schedules and everything sort of the number one thing in the home. So,
And I think that's something we all struggle with. I know Heidi and I both are type A, so I know we struggle with that, or at least I do. I assume she
I
does
do.
too.
I'm the same
Um,
way.
it is so hard, and you see all the things that are going on around you, and people talking about all this stuff, and you really
Right.
desperately want to it, to get this great new curriculum or this great new shiny object, as I always call it. But at the same time, um, there was somebody in the group, and I've posted several questions today that sort of surround this whole thought that of that article. Um, so many folks, and I fell prey to it too. Heidi probably fell prey to it in the very beginning. We got so wrapped up in the curriculum and so wrapped up in, are we doing it right? That
Hmm.
right word. And I think it's really hard for moms to figure out that right is defined by you. not by the state, not by your neighbor, not by your best friend homeschooling, that our right is what's right for our family. And it's really hard for us to remember that. There's Lisa. Hey,
Hey, Lisa.
Lisa.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
glad you joined.
Okay. Hi.
So introduce yourself. Everybody else has, so go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lisa from the Pennington Point. Trish, you got bangs.
I do. I got a haircut.
Oh,
They're
cute.
cute. I like
Sorry.
Thank you.
Dorinda,
I know.
you got bangs too.
I do.
I always
There's two
have
of us
bangs.
with bangs.
So bangs is a serious decision.
It is a serious
gonna
decision
say.
when your hair is this long, y'all. You know, it's like, wow.
Anytime, it's like a year-long commitment at least.
Yep,
Right.
yep. I did do it. I jumped in, y'all. So, okay, so
Good for
Dorinda
you.
was just, thank you. We were just talking about Dorinda's article this month on Hip Homeschool Moms, which was really, really a great article. And I think it's something that we really all need to remember to help moms own this, own the thought of how big homeschooling is, that it's not just about curriculum, but it's about our whole family. And I think that's one thing that I want to continue to drive. And so it was just a perfect article to start today. So I wanted to, she just went over what she had, so you haven't missed anything. Because you've already read the article. So she
Yes.
was just talking a little bit about that article. And Dorinda, thank you for writing it. It was a great job.
It's funny
So-
because Dorinda and I must secretly be on the same page. I actually wrote an article and have an article coming up on Starts at 8 this month called Unconditional Love in Parenting, and about the overriding feeling of what I'm portraying, what am I exuding to my children, and will they later know that I loved them unconditionally? Will that overriding sentiment come through? So when I read Dorinda's article, I had to secretly smile because, it is about that. It is about that underlying or overriding, sentiment or tone that you're setting, and not necessarily about all the nuts and bolts that I love so much.
She does love them, too.
She does. Yes, she does.
Oh, I love you, Heidi. I love how you just lay it out there. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question. And y'all, this one really broke my heart. And so I'm starting here, okay? It says, if a homeschooler confides in you that her homeschool is filled with fights, stress, and arguing, and she's beginning to think it's not worth it, what do you say to her to help? Dorinda, we'll start with you since it was your article.
Well, I think that for me, what has worked the best over the years is just to pull back away from the schoolwork itself and really work on the relationships. Either, slim the schoolwork down to a skeleton. So, if I can't handle, my type A personality can't handle not doing something, do something super, super basic, but even in all of that, really focus on the relationship with the kids. Because sometimes I found that when I take the time to stop and sit back and watch my kids and not say a lot, because I tend to talk a lot, so if I stop talking, often I get to really see how are they interacting and where are the problems happening, if it's bickering amongst the kids, or it gives me kind of a little perspective, and I'm able to say, hey, it looks like this kind of keeps coming up, and we can work on the character issues and the relational issues, because that's really what's going on. And then also to stop and to think about, am I trying to do too much? Am I making the curriculum and other things important that shouldn't be? So just asking myself some of those questions and gaining a little bit of perspective on what's actually happening in my home, and be able to identify those things and go in and try to get those things situated before we try to bring more schoolwork into the picture again.
Yeah, diagnose. Lisa?
Right.
Got thoughts, Lisa?
Lisa!
I think she's frozen. Poor thing. I'm telling you what.
I don't know, that internet down there in Texas, it must not be
I'm
very
telling you what. You would think. She's rural, so she's going to have to pop out and pop back in. Oh, well. Y'all got to see her at least, right? There she is.
There
she's
she
part
is.
of the group. Okay, Heidi, your thoughts.
Oh, well, it's funny because my first thought was fight, stress, and arguing. I was trying to determine whether that was with me as the parent or between the
Right.
children,
I
Right.
quite
think it was
honestly, because
honestly, I think it was an only child that she was talking about homeschooling, and so I think it's between her and her child. So
I know
yeah.
for me, I think when you're talking myself and my child, the most stress, fighting, and arguing I have gotten was because whatever we were doing wasn't working. Um,
Hmm.
that there was that the child wasn't understanding, so they were frustrated themselves and kind of shutting down. So
Hmm.
I might go along the lines of Dorinda and say, take a look at what you're doing, take a look at your child, and how you think they learn best, and possibly tweak what you're doing. Um,
One
and if
thing
it's
that I
about
have, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and if it's about just they're just don't want to do it, well, you know me, I'll just lay down the law. You do it or you get nothing. That's just the way it goes in our house. Like there is no option. You like standing in the corner, fine, do so. There will be nothing else until. But
Well, something that really screamed to me was, and I don't know this, I don't know this, Mom. You know how it is. It's all very one-dimensional when you're reading it on the computer. So, but something that occurred to me is because I'm type A and I'm a control freak, and I can admit that. Um, I think that there might be a little bit of, maybe I need to step back and be less me and more them. Not that that's going on. I have no. Now we have two Lisas.
Wow, look at that.
So I don't know if she can hear us or not, but we have two Lisas down there. But maybe it's time. It might benefit their homeschool for her to ask her child,
Mhm.
what do you want to do, and how do you see homeschool, and what should we be focusing on, and just try. Why is this so stressful? Why is this so hard? What is it that and like you said, talk diagnose and analyze, but yet at the same time, maybe be willing to step back, because I think that's the hardest thing for, especially me being so strong type A, is to step back and not make it about me. You know?
Right.
Well, yeah, and
So.
often I will ask the kids, well, how do you think it would be better? Like, if you don't like this, if you don't like what we're
Mhm.
doing, you tell me. Do you have a solution? Do you have an idea of
Right.
what might work
Right.
better for you? Like, we can't not do this subject, or
Right.
whatever
That's
it
not an
might be.
option.
That's not
Mhm.
an option. But is there something, or some process that you think you might like better? Some of my kids like to do certain things before others. And I have this idea that everything. I like to do math first, and I like it's just and
Uh-huh.
so, sometimes, like you said, it might be stepping outside of yourself and saying, okay, well, if you, the child, are having a problem and you're not happy with this, communicate with me.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
what you think might work. Obviously, sitting on the couch and watching TV all day, not an option.
Right.
But do
Scratch that
you
one.
Right, but do you
Yep.
need more breaks? I had a kid that lasted 10, 15 minutes and then
Right.
had to go and move, whatever that
Right.
was. Go outside, jump on a
Right.
trampoline, run the neighborhood, play, jump around for on the dance pads for DDR, whatever it was. So I had to give, knowing that he couldn't sit for that length of time. And so
Right.
it might just be a matter of, what, I need to look outside the box. I need to look
Mhm.
outside of what exactly I'm doing, and and like I said, communicate with your child and see if you can't find something that's working better, because I think we all wouldn't be here if we didn't think it wasn't worth it.
Amen.
Right. Yeah,
So I
for
think we
sure.
all think it's worth it, but everybody does it differently and everything works differently for people. And so I think that our overriding advice that we're hearing from all of us is, take a step back, from
Mm.
yourself, ask, talk to your child, have some open communication. Heck, throw it all out the window if you have to. I've been there. I've
Mhm.
thrown the
Yeah.
math out the window for a couple of months. I've been like, forget it. This is too much stress on all of us. It's just not worth it. So don't hesitate to shake it up and try something completely different. Don't hesitate to ask your
Mhm.
child's opinion.
I
Well, and
agree.
I think a couple of things too. You have to, we've talked about this before, that we have to learn to tune into our gut feeling as homeschooling moms. As moms, we have to do it. As homeschooling, it all kind of ties together. But just that learning to sort of trust your gut a little bit, it takes time, and you go through a lot of these kinds of scenarios to build that kind of confidence. And
Mhm.
the other thing is that, we've talked about this before too, is that You know, what we think of as a failure, you know, obviously when we're arguing with our child during homeschooling, that does feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But that can be turned around and actually be really, really useful. It can be an opportunity. Two things, like Heidi said, to figure out if maybe this plan isn't working. The other thing is problem solving and just thinking through things together, the communication aspect of it, asking questions, them having to think through themselves. That's all a learning process. You're
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling right there as you're working through conflict. And you will have conflict in homeschooling. You just will. And so to have an idea in our mind that we're never going to have conflict or it's just going to be just beautiful and peachy most of the time, you can just throw that out the window and just, you know, take one day at a
That's not an
time.
option either.
That's exactly. And remember that those conflicts are teaching opportunities. So,
That's a good
um,
point. I'm making notes. I know, aren't I awful? We're going to try to do something a little different this time after the show. We're going to try to do a post about it. So I'm making notes. So if I look like I am completely ignoring y'all, it's not. I'm listening
because
intently.
you are. No.
I'm listening intently and I'm writing notes. So y'all remember
All right.
everything you said because I'm liable to forget it. No, I'm just kidding. It's recorded.
I can and will be held against you.
That's right. I think those are some good ideas, and I think if there is a whole lot of stress and conflict and arguing going on, I think that is the key. You know, that if you see that in your homeschool, I think that's where you say, "Wait a minute, something's
That's
wrong."
the red flag.
Yeah. Let's stop. Let's put everything on hold for a day or a week or however long, and let's re-examine this. Let's stop. You know, there's nothing that says that we have to keep going and plow through this. Stop for a second, breathe,
No,
and
that's,
examine.
yep. Yeah, actually, the worst thing you can do is keep plowing through because you're
Yeah.
going to burn out. Your kids are going to burn out. They're going to hate homeschooling. It's not going to be
Mm,
good. You're going to hate homeschooling. And that whole hitting the pause button, you know,
yeah.
that's one thing that has just, especially, you know, as the kids get older and into the teen years and those discussions slash arguments end up getting more heated and more complicated because they're able to argue better with you. Because they're getting smarter and
It's our
smarter by the
sarcasm.
moment,
Yeah,
you
and they
know.
can throw sarcasm in there with it. And you're like,
Exactly. There's a lot of different things they throw in there. You really have to be willing to stop and just, I call it, like you said, just hit the pause button, take a break, and
yeah.
then come back together when you're, you know, a little more reasonable. Everybody's a little more reasonable, and you can work things out. So, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there's quite a few questions that sort of surround that whole thought. So I'm going to scroll through real quick, and okay, here's another one. Y'all are going to enjoy this one, especially since some of us are type A's. We want me. So sometimes us type A perfectionist type moms get way too invested in the outcome and become all pushy and perfectionistic. That's not a word, perfectionist and a perfectionist. I didn't type that right. And totally ruin the fun. How can we help them to loosen up? Them being so,
The mama.
yeah, we don't know who that would be. None of us would understand that question. But seriously, y'all, we do. I mean, this mom was talking about how she had spent all this time and she cut out all these little, I guess it was for the flannel boards, you know, where they're doing all the, anyway, she had been spent all that time cutting all that stuff out, and she was going to have this whole presentation, and she got all perfectionist on it and sort of blew it. And we do it. I mean, we do it all the time. We get so invested. So how do you help? How do you pull back? How do you loosen up? Where's that line? One of the things with y'all know why I didn't do lap books? Because I'm such a perfectionist. If we did lap books, I would have to cut them. I would have to do all that. And I'm like, that's not what it's all about. So I couldn't do lap books because I would be the one doing it. And so,
But at least you knew that. That was good.
and of course I have boys, and I don't think boys like lap books quite as much as girls do. So
Yeah,
I don't know why. But so anyway, when I saw that concept, I was like, oh, and you know, the coloring thing, I'm a color in the line. Oh my gosh, I can so see that wouldn't work for me. So how do you help a mom loosen up? I mean, really, I'm one of them. How do you loosen up? I don't know how to do that. So Heidi, you're a type A, strong type A. Have you figured out how to loosen up?
I think honestly, I loosen up a little bit every year. I mean, that still may not look loose by any stretch of the imagination to anyone else. But it's always something that's in the back of my mind. And here locally, I am part of a homeschool group that is more unschooling. It's an unschooling group by nature, and I am not necessarily an unschooler, obviously by nature. But I have always sort of tried to follow our kids' interests, at least with some subjects or some things. And, so I've been trying over the past maybe 6 months or so to become the yes mom. I try to stop what we're doing if there's some tangent or some love that our child has gotten on, to try and let that go. And honestly, I started using a tracking program for our school stuff a few years back, and I know that sounds like it would be more rigid, but the fact that I could keep track of what we had done and see what we had accomplished made me feel better. So it was like, oh, well, I had a way to satisfy me and say, look, I can see these things that I've completed. I've checked them off, and then feel okay when, wow, like we were done at 10 o'clock this morning. We got all day. What are we going to do now? Instead of feeling like I'd get to the end of the day or the end of the week and be like, oh, we didn't do anything. We just went off and had fun, and we did this, instead, at the end of the day or at the end of the week, I could see, oh yeah, look we still did things that satisfied mom's kind of type A, but we also did a lot of fun things and, loosened up into other things.
Never thought that, Heidi. I'm so glad you brought that up, because tracking to me is rigid. I agree. Right. So that's a great point, that it was more for you to see how much you had accomplished. What a great thought.
And I know if you could speak to my husband, he would tell you the dynamic difference in our house when I started using a tracking program, because it satisfied my feeling that I wasn't accomplishing enough, that I wasn't doing enough. And so it was a dramatic difference for me. And yes, it seems completely opposite, but it truly, for me to be able to say, oh yeah, I did do these things, made a huge difference for me to be able to say, oh yeah, let's go to the playground. Let's go to the park today. Let's spend all day cooking or playing, or baking or, doing Play-Doh. Or it really allowed me, like I said, and that's my personal thing. That's my type A going, well, but for me, then I could concretely see what we had done.
That's great. Dorinda,
yeah.
What are your ideas?
I'm thinking the same thing. That's kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of trying to picture exactly what she is talking about, but for me, it looks more like I have this, I don't lesson plan. The kids know what they're supposed to do every day, and they just, and I check it at the end of the, morning or whatever, and I write down what they've done. And so when we do things that are not maybe the core stuff that day, we're doing something different, maybe we're planting the garden or we're doing whatever, writing it down, like is that kind of what you were saying, Heidi? Is you're basically writing down the things, the things you're doing, kind of keeping a journal of what you do every day together, because no matter, really, honestly, most of the time, whatever we're doing, even if it's not schoolwork, we're still homeschooling.
That's right.
So and we have to always remember that, because all those other things, they count, and so if you end up with a day where, like you said, I've got a daughter who she's 12, and she wants to learn how to make, homemade pie crusts. And she said something about someone else's mom knows how to make homemade pie crusts. And I said, I know how to make homemade pie crust.
She's like, well, it's been so long since I've seen one. I wouldn't know. No.
I know. She's just like, I don't like pie crust, so I never make pies. And so, and I mean, they're not beautiful, but they're, I know how to do it. And I was like, hey, I know how to make pie crust. I'll make pie crust with you. So, that's one of those things we'll probably do, and we can just write that down, So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And it's true. Time will loosen you up, because you'll get tired of fighting the type A list thing and go, you know what, this just isn't worth it. I really think I need to back off a little bit. That's what happened to me. It was just, over time, I cared more about the relationship with my kids, and I could see that suffering, and so I was like, okay, nothing is worth this.
Yeah.
And so, and then just kind of, but it's always finding a balance, it just is.
Yeah. And for some of us, that balance. And I've been doing this for, 6 years. I know y'all both have been doing it much longer than I have. But still, you think, I think that, I think in the beginning it's harder. And like you said, both of y'all said, as you go, it's going to get easier. But I still think, us type A's, we're type A's. And I think we battle it. I think it's just going to be a battle. I
Right.
think we're going to have to, like Heidi said, she is being intentional about
Right.
her decisions and about how she teaches, etc. I think that's half of it. You have to be intentional.
Mhm.
This
There's
is
her
my
there's her
this is
schedule.
my intentional, ladies.
Oh
This is
my
my
word.
now you see times here. These times are not really accurate. They're just to
Right.
put it in an order, and I
Right.
know approximately how long things take. So this is my intentional. This is an assignment sheet or part of one, anyways, that my two younger ones get each week and check off their work.
Wow.
And
Wow.
this was my now I feel like I've accomplished what I need to list that each and what's funny is last week we started school up for officially for the year, and I didn't have the assignment sheets done. I hadn't done all the lesson planning in the homeschool tracker and the program I use, and so I didn't do the assignment sheets last week. I was still filling stuff in as we went. And the kids, when are we getting our assignment sheets? When are we getting our assignment sheets? When are we getting those assignment sheets? I don't see them on our clipboards. And so they've kind of gotten used to it. They can get up and they can get started, and they know what's expected of them for the day. And they so it's kind of a guide for them. Like if I get this stuff done, then we move on to whatever we kind of want to do, or and some days we don't finish it all, and you have to finish it another day. But that's my intentional.
It looks good. I know for y'all, it's exactly what you needed. Check off.
Yep, it was
This
exactly
next
what I
question.
needed.
This next question is yours too, because
Mhm.
you are a curriculum person, but yet you can follow their interests. And so she said, my son asked to learn about kingdoms or empires. So I'm having a hard time deviating from the lesson plan to try something different. We follow a curriculum, but I like the idea of teaching to his interests too. Help. How do I do that? Is essentially what she's saying. And so,
I
yeah, how do you do it?
I often will just stop whatever. Like if it's something in science that the kids are really interested in, I will often just suspend whatever curriculum I was using, and and then do what they were interested in, and then go back to what we were doing. That's kind of how I balance it. And sometimes it means we get to the end of the year and we haven't finished all the curriculum, and that's okay too. I've learned to kind of not stress if I haven't finished every bit of it
How
all
long
the
do you
time.
work on it? So do you plan a week? Do you plan a few days? Do you plan a lesson? Does it depend? I mean, what does it depend on?
Um, I think it depends on how interested they are, how in
Okay.
depth that they want to go. I've taken anywhere from a week to 3 weeks,
Okay.
and suspended whatever, we were doing, to do something else, especially with my little one, because she does often get off on tangents of things and get interested in
Hmm.
things. And so that's that's kind of how I fulfill my curriculum slash follow somebody's whim need. I mean,
Okay.
obviously there's a lot of people that don't use a curriculum at all, so
Well,
you
that's
would just
exactly. That's Dorinda. And so Dorinda sort of does this by nature, but without the curriculum. So I assume, Dorinda, for you, it's easier to just do that, to just follow their interests, right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I usually encourage them to, like, I won't go and dig up everything for them, but I'll show them how to find out what they want to know. Whether
Hmm.
that's looking it up somewhere on the internet or going to the library and getting a big pile of books on that. We have so many books in our house that often we can go down and find some right in our own home and just pull those out, and I just let them go for it. And they're so creative. They're amazing. They'll do everything from, the younger ones will draw pictures of what they're learning and, do cutout things, and they just love, they almost, like, if I become too much a part of it, it ruins it for them.
Okay,
They're like,
see?
okay, we're taking all the fun out of this. So, okay. Well, here's your scissors and your glue and your paper. Need anything else?
As Mama Trish is going, glue. Let's not get the glitter out. Now we're going really too
Yeah, the
far.
glitter's where I draw the line. I'm sorry.
But, there's also that free space in our house. So most
Right.
afternoons there's that
Yeah.
free space that they're kind of filling. And for instance, we finally got our microscope last week. It was a big deal to get the microscope, and my younger two were all kinds of excited to dig into that. So, when they were done with their work, it was, can we use the microscope? Can we use the
Right.
microscope? So you dig out the books. I have a poster on the wall about that shows the parts of the microscope. And so as they were trying to do stuff, okay, look at the poster. We got to move that, and so they're kind of learning and exploring because they were excited to get it. And so we have prepared slides that are for my teenagers' science this year. And so we were working with the slides, and it was just one of those things that we did when we were done. It was, oh my gosh, we have a microscope. That's so exciting. What can we do with it? I pulled
Well,
a
you
piece
know,
of my hair out. It was like, so we did it on top of. In that case, it was just in the spare time, and we did it on top of what we were doing anyways, because that was fun. That was what they did in their free time. So
Right.
it
we've
works out.
added Crafty Minecraft in.
Mhm.
And we did it yesterday, made a huge mistake, y'all. We're still learning. We're veterans, but man, we're still learning too, y'all. So we started Scrafty first thing in the morning. Oh, huge mistake. Huge mistake. We didn't get to class till like 1 o'clock, and wow, we didn't get it all done. So yeah, we
I do it
switched.
the opposite of you. I do it the
Well, now,
opposite of you because mine is still working on my 11-year-old is still working on his self. It was one. It's not an actual live crafty
mhm.
class. It's a self-led one for, I think it's a 16-week class on the elements in the periodic table. And so
Mhm.
we do it the opposite. When he finishes
That's what
his
we're
stuff,
doing now.
then we go into Scrafty for fun/learning.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We learned, and they love it. So they'll stay in there. Yesterday it was we're taking two. We're doing government and history museum, and so they were in there, and they could have built all day long. They love to build. The creative side is they love to
Oh,
build.
yeah.
So yeah, so we were like, oh, I messed up. We did that wrong. Speaking of which, I see a son over there watching a video that he should not be watching about Scrafty. About Scrafty, as we're
Oh, there
sitting
you
here, he's
go.
watching Scrafty.
See,
I mean, not
this
Scrafty, Minecraft. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Yes, that was me being real, and I'm correcting my child in the middle of this video. Sorry.
that's right.
Okay, so the next question is, how flexible are you in your planning? Do you shuffle things around? And I think we just really talked about that.
We did. Yeah.
We sort of covered that. We do shuffle as we follow our children's interests. So I'm going to do
Yeah.
that one as done. Okay, next one. I think this one's a good question. There was a problem completing this action. Please try again. Whatever. Okay, I'm selecting a new one. There. I selected a new one. It says, how long do you use a certain curriculum before it's safe to say it's just not working for your child? And that's a really good question, because we actually have an article on Hip Homeschool Moms that's, saying, well, before you ditch that curriculum, here are a few things you might want to think about. But there is a point, there's a fine line. Where's the fine line? Dorinda, where is that fine line?
Boy, that's one of those things where you just have to really play it by ear and by your gut feeling. And sometimes I'll just share a recent experience. Our 12-year-old daughter she really does not like math. And so we've just kind of been hopping around a little bit, trying some different things. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, let's try this for this year and see how that works. And it went okay. And then okay, well, maybe we'll try a little of this. And I'm thinking I'm being helpful, and she's going along with it. But what I didn't realize was that in the process, she was losing confidence. She was feeling like it doesn't matter what I try, none of it's going really well. And so I had to really stop and think about that. And I had no idea that that's how she would end up feeling. And so I kind of had to regroup a little bit. And so we are still doing something new this year, but it's something where, she's very relational. So it's one of those subjects that I'm actually sitting down with her and I'm doing it with her. There's videos we watch, and then along the way I'm making sure that she's getting the concepts, and it's covering all kind of the very basic fundamentals of math. And when we're through with it, by the end of she's in 7th grade now. By the end of next year, the end of 8th grade, she should be ready for algebra in high school. So that's kind of, but you take your time just really camping out on any concepts that she's not feeling confident in. We can stay there for a while, and I can give her extra worksheets, and we can, rewatch the videos if we have to, and we're just taking our time, but we're doing it together. And yesterday, I just went and I fixed her a cup of tea while she was, while we were watching it, and brought it to her. And later that day, she was like, "Mom, that just made so much difference." She goes, she said it was so relaxing this morning. And forever it's been, she just wanted to get math over with, because it was like, I hate this, I don't feel good about this, and it was just such a different experience. And so I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I
made you feel fantastic. I know
it did make me feel a lot better. It really did. So, but it's been a long time, and it's been a lot of struggle, and just really not sure what to do. And so you just kind of, make your way, I guess, is how it works. And I just finally feel like, okay, hopefully this will continue to work, but I'm excited so far. So it's just kind of a recent thing that I learned.
Yeah. I know, Heidi, you've had to ditch one. I think it was math also, coincidentally, for you, wasn't it? So
yes, I have written so much about this experience.
I know.
Of math and this journey of math with my oldest. She's 15. Right. It's been since, I don't know, she's a sophomore. It has to be since like 4th grade, 5th grade. It was 6th grade that it really got, like, when I literally threw the curriculum out the window and walked away from math for a couple of months because it was so bad. I was just, and I just was like, we're done. You're in tears. I'm like ripping my hair out. We're done. And I just threw it out.
And not to look under the microscope, right?
Yes, and not to look under the microscope. Just threw it out the window and said, we are done. I don't know I don't think there's a set time, and and it's,
well, what are the triggers? I mean, there has to be a space where you go, okay, so this is not going to work. This is, I mean, I have to admit, I did the same thing last year. My middle son, we did video text with him. My oldest son is doing video text. My youngest son is doing teaching textbooks, and my middle one was doing video text with the oldest. And we literally just restarted algebra. He was already almost at algebra 2, and we started algebra over with teaching textbooks with him because he wasn't getting it. He wasn't getting it. He came to me and said, can I try teaching textbooks? So I did a whole year. Heidi, at least you dumped it, halfway through. I did a whole year of not catching it. So yeah.
It becomes a thing where it's a trial and error kind of thing. It's your process of knowing your child and knowing when they're distressed or when they're struggling, and knowing what your limits are, and going, okay, I've tried this curriculum. I've thought about and tried to tweak it, because I've taken curriculums, you kind of try and tweak them, and and it's still not working, and there just comes a point when, like I said, there was no good could come of where we were at, and that there wasn't anybody that was looking on and saying to me, "Yep, you fulfilled your 3-month quota. Time to move on to another curriculum." As much as I would like such a thing, it was me going, oh my gosh, no good can come from this. My child is miserable. I am miserable. And it wasn't my child just squawking because she didn't like math or she just didn't want to do. It was clearly a distress thing. It was clearly she's not getting it. I'm not able to, with the curriculum we're using, to facilitate it for her. Like, the curriculum was such, she'd get, through a section of a chapter fine, and then she'd get to the, the most difficult part of that concept or chapter, and she'd get stuck. And the problem is, we were at a point in math where I didn't just know it. And for me to try and go back and figure out the whole process she was doing and try and teach it to her, it just wasn't happening. And so, so we just, and it was a process of time where I went, okay, yeah, this just isn't working. And so we just threw it out the window. And like I said, we totally threw it out the window and we didn't do math, any sort of formal math at all for 3 months.
Well, with us, it was a little bit different. He didn't complain. and I probably should have picked up on the fact that he was having to redo. But what we did, or what we usually do, is if there's a concept that they don't get, um, we usually go immediately to another resource to try to understand that concept. So Khan Academy is a big friend of ours here. If we don't get it with the curriculum, then we go to Khan Academy. I'm not. I don't have anything really. I don't have a problem with Khan Academy. I don't use it as my primary, but I think it's a fantastic supplement, and it probably is a fantastic primary. I just haven't figured out how to use it quite that way. So,
me neither.
I love what they teach and how they teach, and I love the whiteboard thing, the blackboard where they write on there, and it's all. I mean, it's really very good. There's nothing I can complain about, and so we regularly go there, and that's what we were doing. And so I guess I should have picked up on it, but I didn't. So I know it's and we keep saying this, y'all, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, and to the new homeschool moms, that's a scary place to be.
Yeah. It is.
They don't like that trial and error because they don't have that mommy gut, that mommy instinct quite yet to go, yeah, this is time. It's time to ditch it. So, I keep asking questions and trying to probe, but I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Y'all know that. I'm just trying to help those new moms that don't have that instinct yet, or they don't trust they have the instinct, they just don't trust it yet.
Yeah. But you look at ourselves. You look at Dorinda, you look at yourself. We've been homeschooling for years. Dorinda, what, 20? I think you said 20 years. And she still is at this point, was at this point recently with a child where she was figuring it out. Like, okay, this doesn't seem to be working. It's still, so I mean, even as a veteran homeschooler, it's still all about trial and error and instinct and kind of, I started a new program with, for language arts with my son this year, and I'm already like, I don't know if I like this. Like a week and a half. And, and it's fine. It's not that we're not, it's just, I have certain things that I like and don't like about things that we're doing or using. And I'm already thinking in the back of my head, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I'm not going to like this one so much, kind of thing. And so it is kind of no matter how many years you've been doing it, it's a trial and error with, different children and, until you figure out what's working for them.
And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking that, for me, our two oldest were girls, and, we had, 8 little kids when they were homeschooling and getting all their basic math stuff in, like that 6th, 7th, 8th grade where they're kind of prepping for high school math and all of that. And they didn't like math, and I really couldn't do a lot of sitting down with them and figuring it all out, and they made it through fine, but neither of them like it. Neither of them, I wouldn't say that they are real confident in the math area, but they're doing fine as wives and moms, and they're going to homeschool their kids, and they'll probably get some sort of helps along the way for math. But so I looked at that and I learned from that, and I thought, our other 12-year-old girl was kind of following the same pattern, and I thought, I'd really like her to have just a little more confidence than the older girls have, and so I'm learning from that. That was a learning curve for me, and neither of my girls resent or feel like they were deprived or anything like that, but for me, from my perspective, I would, I can probably do that a little bit differently with our 12-year-old, and so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I wanted to do, and I'm willing to sit down. I can now sit down with her and walk through it with her. And so, it's just every child's different. Your circumstances are different with each child, and all of that plays into how you can homeschool your kids. The important thing is that you are homeschooling your kids, that you love them, you care about them, you care about their education, or you wouldn't be doing this, because this is a sacrifice. But the bottom line is that overarching care for your children and wanting the best for them, and that's what you're conveying to them by homeschooling them. And so it's just kind of another one of those big picture things.
It is. It really is. It always seems to, come back to trial and error, instinct, and go back to focusing on the big picture. I mean, every single, almost all of it, it's not worth that battle, but you do have to still teach it. So it's, it's finding that fine line. Okay. We have two more questions. One is just a quick and dirty, so I'm going to grab it. And it is, when do you start grading? I know Heidi probably starts earlier, and Dorinda probably starts later. So, Heidi, when do you grade from early on? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think so.
I knew. So I can answer this.
Starts grading
How about this? I have a third grader that gets grades and did last year for.
Okay.
It's like when you're doing a math workbook or just you get them right or you don't or so yeah I don't put emphasis on their grades. I mean I do it for my own logging purposes, I don't put an emphasis on it. It's not a oh my gosh, look what you got or oh my, and
Right.
for my teenager it's more important. She's a sophomore in high school and I feel it's more important as they're older. And with her it was an indication to me because she does use teaching textbooks and it's something I don't hover over her with. But as she's turning in her grade sheets and I'm looking at them and, she's starting to score less than 80%, well, to me, that's an indication that we're not getting the concepts like you talked about, Trish. Like, you didn't necessarily see it right away with your one son. For me, that was okay, we have a problem here. And it happened last year, and we ended up going back and redoing a whole bunch of concepts over our winter break, so to speak. My husband sat down with her and went through and so in the older years, like I said, and with her, it's been an indication of where there might be issues. And like with my little one, I don't know. She does a spelling program. She takes a spelling test. I put we mark it right or wrong, and that's it. It's not a big emphasis thing. But yes, I do give grades. I did my third grader. I did my second grader last year. So at the very least, I started at second grade.
Okay, I'm writing second grade down. Okay. So I tried to take a note. See, I'm going to hold this against you later. No.
Well,
the video tells it anyway, right? So Dorinda, when do you give grades?
When I first started homeschooling, I was totally dead set against giving grades. I was like, I am not doing the grade system. This is not public school. We're just going to go along. And that was great. It worked wonderfully. But eventually what I found was with our boys, because we have 5 boys, once they realized that there was a grading system, like they could actually sort of like compete with themselves.
I knew you were going there.
It was like this motivation, like, could you grade this? What grade is that? What is an A? What is a B? They wanted to know all about it. So when it came to the boys, the grading system was great because they totally loved it. They loved being able to kind of know, okay, this is where I'm at with this, and it was a way for them to see how well they were doing, and that was a big deal to them. So I ended up, grading them pretty much after that. But yeah, that's kind of how that ended up going.
With us, we with Montessori, of course, you didn't. Montessori all the way through upper elementary, you don't grade because there's nothing to grade. It's about using the manipulatives, and you could sit there, but they only had 6 problems they were working a day on certain math concepts, so it would have been. It was either pass or fail, essentially, because with 6 problems, you either get it or you don't get it. But now like you said, the program really does the grading, and it's more about, for me, it's a tool, not necessarily to see, how smart they are. It's more a tool for me to say, oh, I need to go, like you said, Heidi, about, having to go back and backtrack. It's a tool for me to see if this curriculum's working or if, this is sinking in. And if it's not sinking in, it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with us, our teaching style, our curriculum we've chosen, or whatever, And I guess it could have something to do with them if they're playing. But if they're diligent, then there's something else going on, right? So, yeah, so I use it more as a tool. So I think, isn't it interesting how we all ended up there, but yet we didn't. I'm like Dorinda, I didn't expect to have grades, and my kids are so competitive. Oh my gosh, I have all boys, and so when you said that, I'm going, yep, that's exactly what it is. It's so funny.
When my teenager was younger, she's a competitive gymnast and at the gym and around a lot of public school kids herself. And they used to give rewards at the gym for good grades. So if you didn't have
Oh.
some sort of something to, so she's like, Mom, I remember her saying, Mom, do we do report cards? Because if I bring in my good report card, I get such and such, or whatever it was. And so it
Oh.
was, and so yeah, like I said, I use a tracking program, and some of it is just arbitrary grades. Like, my kid's doing cursive, I automatically give her a 10 out of 10 every day.
Yeah.
She's put in the effort. Like, she's third grade. She's put in the
Right.
effort. Like, so I just, in that spot, I put 10 out of 10. Like, it just.
Yeah.
So
Still
some of my grading is arbitrary. But, she put in the effort, she put in the time, and I just, so, and like I said, so the kids aren't totally hung on it, but we, for my teenager, when she was younger, I said it became a thing. It was, well, everybody's bringing in their report cards, and if you bring in your report card and you got all A's, you get, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, actually, I can print you a report card, but it wasn't even something she was conscious of that I could do, but because of the way I do things in the program
Yeah.
that I use, I could actually
Yeah.
print out a report card for her and take it in, and she could get her name on the wall, and and whatever. And so it was kind of an incentive thing, but
And that was a big deal for her. And it
Yep,
was about her.
and it wasn't something she'd been focusing on. Like I said, she's like,
Yeah.
do I get a report card? Do you, So it wasn't something, like I said, it wasn't something that I put a lot of emphasis on, but I do. And for her, it was, it was like she wanted recognition at the gym. Well, just like all of her other friends. And so, we ended up using it, more sooner than I expected. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
I'll print a report card,
There you go.
So.
Okay, so the last question for the day is going to be one that I think is going to take a few minutes. So that's why I saved it for the last. It says, what advice do you have for moms who are struggling and who are questioning their ability to homeschool? I've seen that more than once in our group this past couple of weeks, where moms really literally are to the point that they're ready to throw the towel in. And most of them are new. Some of them are not brand spanking new. This might be their second or third year. But nevertheless, they're all, not all, but, the ones that I'm referring to are at this stage where they're ready to throw the towel in. So what do you say?
I threw in the towel a month after I started.
Oh, exactly.
I did.
What do you-
It's, you have this expectation, even if you've, I've seen people come into the Hip Homeschool Moms community, not homeschooling yet, but looking for information and looking for, and you get this expectation or this idea in your head. And those of us that are planners, you plan everything out and you're all excited and you got your color-coded this and your new textbooks or books or whatever it is. And then maybe it doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go. And I think that it's difficult, because you get a certain expectation. So I would say throw your expectations out the window for starters. Don't set some sort of, mile marker or pie in the sky plan that you think is going to be the end all be all. Be willing to be flexible and change what you're doing. Be willing to drop everything and give yourself space.
Especially in the beginning when you're still figuring it out. Lord, don't get married to anything in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I made it like 2 weeks into October, when I started homeschooling. I had a newborn. I gave birth in June. I had a toddler, and I was homeschooling second grade. And I don't even know how we all survived. We ended up, my husband had to take a few days off from work. We shipped the older two kids off to their grandparents, kept the baby home and just like tried to regroup and take a breather and, give myself some perspective that, I was being way too hard on myself and was expecting just way too much. And we have those moments, and those periods of time even now where, I want to throw in the towel. And, so I think that if you expect that starting out, like, if you can know in your mind that those times are going to happen and that it's okay and it's not unusual, I think that could be helpful. Instead of just thinking that, you've got this pie in the sky plan and everything's going to be all sunshine and roses. Because it's not. It's hard. I do it. I believe in it. I love having the kids home. I love being on our own schedule, but that doesn't mean it's not hard. That doesn't mean there are not days when our kids are in their rooms half the day because, they can't get along, or, I mean, they're in each other's space. So I think for moms that are struggling, take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
There's no set answer.
Yeah, I would say just relax. Just, like Heidi said, just pull back. And I'm thinking about comparing homeschooling to motherhood. You become a mother, we don't know what we're doing when we get that baby in our arms. We just figure it out along the way. And homeschooling really isn't any different than that. Just because motherhood gets hard doesn't mean we stop being a mother. Somehow,
no,
we keep plowing forward. We figure it out, and it's the same thing with homeschooling. And you are by nature your child's best teacher. You're the most fit for those children because you know them better than anybody, and you love them more than anybody. So really, honestly, you are the best teacher for them, whether you believe you are or not. But again, like comparing it to motherhood, we don't stop being a mother. We're just always a mother, and we work through the hard times, and we continue to be a mother. And you do the same thing with homeschooling.
That's a great comparison, great analogy, because we do, we every once in a while we can ship them off to grandma or something, where we can take a break.
Absolutely.
Other than that, we
think about it. For centuries, mothers taught their children. This whole concept of the public school classroom, what is that, 100 years old?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that doesn't compare with the centuries of mothers who naturally taught their children at home. So you can do this.
That's right. That's right. That's some good advice there. Okay, well, we are literally at the end of our questions. Did y'all want to wrap up with anything? Any concept, any thought you wanted to share before we close?
Just keep plugging along, and remember that homeschooling is more about plotting than it is about these huge strides. It's just get up every day and do it. And get through it.
You know what?
And
that needs to be our motto. Just do it. Because, there have been, how many moms have we seen in there the last couple of days who said, I'm thinking about, or I'm getting ready to, or I'm wanting to, or I'm going to next week or next year or whatever. Just do it. Just do it.
Well,
that's good
and
advice.
Throw the perfectionism out the window.
Oh, Lord.
Don't set these high standards for yourself that you like Dorinda even said about doing what you in her post about not the thing we should say. Don't get this idea of what you should, what your homeschool should look like or what you should be doing. Live in your moment, in your time and space, and do what works for you, not what you think other people on the outside think that you should be doing or what it should look like. And I mean outside, I mean anybody outside, your husband and your children, that includes your parents, the grandparents, the cousins, the sister, your sisters, your sister-in-laws. I mean, truly, you need to work within your own space and what works for you, and leave the pie in the sky to everybody else.
Yeah. Exactly. And the other thing is, I guarantee you are going to learn far more than your children ever will through homeschooling.
Isn't that the truth? That is so true. And that's, that's one of the things I love about it, is I get to go back and relearn some of those things that I didn't learn in high school and in grade school. I mean, I'm fascinated.
And you learn more about yourself, too.
I know. You do. You really do. And about your limits. Sometimes it's just where my line is. Here's my line, y'all. Don't cross it.
That's right.
Anyway, well, it's been good talking to y'all. I missed y'all last week. I hate that it was me last week, y'all. I was just overwhelmed. I had started school last week, and it was too much going on. So I apologize for missing last week.
Nope.
But I missed y'all. So it's that time. So we will be here. We are actually talking about possibly changing when we host Mentoring Moms. But we will keep y'all up to date and let you know when it's going to be. So be watching for the posts. And thanks, Dorinda, and thanks, Heidi.
Thank you. Have a
And
great week,
Lisa,
guys.
sorry. Yeah. And Dorinda, don't forget, go visit her at Simple Nursing Home. And Heidi, it starts at 8. And Lisa, who, bless her heart, she's here and gone, you know? So she's like the, you know, the masked man that jumps in, says, hey,
That's
and then
right.
she's gone. So, but Lisa's at the Pennington Point, so y'all stop by and visit her too. So thanks, y'all. And we will
Right.
see you next week.
Okay.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
week.
Bye.